And if you guys did not know, Endo is one of the programs, specialty programs, that does not participate in match, doesn't participate in match, which means they have, not only will they have early interviews, early meaning in the first part of this whole cycle of the year, early as in June and July, maybe some August. But guess what? By August, they're done. So you have to be ready for the next phase, which is the interview phase. So let's talk a little bit about the process that you put together related to how you prepared for the interviews and also those programs that you heard back from. Because I know there was at least, what was it, about three? I think there was about three. But let's let's hear a little bit more about that process and the places that you got invitations. And then the second part of it will be to kind of just share a little bit about some of the questions, how the day was, because every program is different. Just because they say endo doesn't mean they're all the same. Every program conducts interviews differently, and they have different questions, some similar questions, but they also have different questions too.
So, okay. So I'll start with from cycle one. When I only got one interview that cycle, and that was from NYU Langone in Brooklyn. It was they had 1 day interview and they split that day up into in a morning and an afternoon session. I went to the afternoon session because you could pick. And they had a lunch, so you got to talk to the residents there and the other interviewers, either for the afternoon or the morning. They could stay. So, and at that time, it was a little overwhelming because I was the only D3 there. Everybody else had been practicing and done AGD. So that was like, wow, that was hard. So I practiced a little bit for that. And I knew certain questions that they were going to ask. And they give you a tour of the clinic, which was in the hospital, which was nice. And then I had the interview and they asked a lot of questions. For them, they were really interested about, again, always the why endo question was that for that one. And they were really interested in my fashion background, and that since I was from New York area originally, and like what made me go out to the Midwest, and you know, just kind of what my long-term goals within dentistry and in endo were. So they were really interested in that. So those were the kind of questions I was fielding at that interview. And so now this cycle, I had two interviews, Tufts, which was in July, and then University of Kentucky, and they couldn't have been very different. But both were nice experiences. So with Tufts, they had, I think, 3 days of interviews, and they were interviewing 7 people per day. I had chose the last day. It was a very informal type of setting. You know, you talk in the morning with breakfast with the residents and just kind of and the other interviewers, and it was really nice. I found out they were interviewing a lot of people that were still in dental school. They were in their D4 year. It was just myself and one other person that had or started practicing. And then the interview was just really informal. They asked me like, what was my favorite book that I just read or the last movie that I saw. One of the program chair was also from New Jersey and went to Rutgers. So we were talking about that and just, you know, if I still sew or if I make my own clothes and stuff. So they were just kind of getting to know you more as a person. And they, you know, also gave a lovely tour of their, you know, dental clinic, which was nice, and just having lunch and just learning about the program. And at this one, which was nice, you actually got to see the residents work on the patients and basically do a shadowing. So I got to see different techniques, what they were using material wise, and how they kind of approach patient care. So that was really something different that I hadn't seen from when I interviewed at the first cycle. University of Kentucky, very different. There was a social gathering the night before at a local restaurant, which was Really a lot of fun, and just getting to talk to the program chair, program director, another person who is part-time faculty that interviewed, and the residents and the other interviewers. So that was nice. Same thing. They usually give, breakfast and lunch, and then touring their facility. There's a lot more. They definitely try to work with all the different specialties there. So they were definitely showing you how the interdisciplinary approaches to dentistry. And then what was different here at Kentucky was that I was interviewed both by the residents and the faculty. So the residents had, they asked why endo. They had a few other interesting questions as to like, if I perforated a tooth, like who would you ask for help first? And just kind of want to know if you were a team player, and are you going to ask run to the attendings to ask, or are you going to ask your co-residents for help first? They wanted to know how I felt about different, price points on rotary systems, and what would I choose the cheapest or the most expensive? And, you have to kind of be diplomatic with how you answer that. And then the faculty, it was interesting. They, again, why endo, why I wanted to be, board certified, because that was a big thing for their program since they are a newer program. But then they also asked me questions about the state of dental education, because they want to know if people would be willing to, go and teach or, do it part time. And so it was just a very different type of questions that I was being asked in both with residents and faculty. So those were my experiences from the 2 cycles for interviews.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the 2 differences, right? A lot of programs in the past, prior to COVID, would have socials where you had a chance as a candidate and they, as a program, to get to meet you on a more informal / personal basis, either before the actual interview day or after the interview day, or later that second half or the evening part of that interview day. One thing to always keep in mind when you have those situations is that it's still part of the interview. Like, don't get so relaxed that you don't understand and realize you're still part of an interview process, right? They're watching you, they're interacting with you, they're taking notes and sharing those notes. So even if there's a social before the interview day or after the interview day, know that it's still part of the interview, right? And then there are some programs that, don't do a social for whatever reasons, but you will usually get that confirmation as part of the information that you receive during the invitation to those programs. Also interesting to note was the fact that you had a mix of both attending / faculty, including the program director. You'll have one interview, and then the second interview is just with the residents, right? Which can be different for programs. Sometimes the residents and the attendings are together, maybe on a panel of 3 to 4 people, or like University of Kentucky, which is a new program, a new endo program, right? And where you have it separately, right? That tells you that everyone is involved in this selection process. So you must have questions that are geared to everyone: the program director, part-time faculty, full-time faculty, the residents, anyone else who's involved with the process as well. Is very important for you to know, so that you are expecting those types of questions from those individuals. So that's great. You went from 1 interview first cycle to 2 interviews, and a total of 3 programs that you interviewed over the course of the 2 cycles as well. And I'm sure during that process, you were taking notes. You were really getting a chance to maybe find out more about the program, the things that you like, because I will tell you, and others will tell you that have gone through this process, that interview day, not only can it change your life, of course, but that interview day can also change your viewpoint on the program.
Right.
right? Especially if you have to rank the program. And again, endo is not part of the match/ranking process, meaning as soon as 24 to 48 hours, if not at the end of the interview, they may make you an offer, right? And give you 24 hours to respond. So having gone through the interview day, it's important that you also are making some observations, because you may find out that program A is not as good as program B based on just because of the interview and the vibe and the energy that you have received and been a part of just because of the interview. So it's important for you to take notes, is where to prepare yourself to be able to say, yep, I'm going to pick Kentucky, or nope, I'm not picking Kentucky because Tufts was better for me, or NYU was better for me based on the interview day. It confirmed it, or it left me with some more questions. I'm not sure. That's the importance of the interview for you as a candidate, because you have a job, which is eventually to say yes or no, or make sure that you're at the program. You're saying yes to the program that you really want to be at based on the feedback that you get during the interview day. So there's a lot to kind of digest and kind of do for yourself, besides answer all the great questions with strong answers and follow up and everything else. So good. Any differences between first cycle, second cycles? I know you did. You had 7 programs the first cycle, and then almost 3 times as many for the second cycle. Outside of applying, anything else that was different, or that you saw maybe in the first cycle that said, you know what, I need to do this, or I need to look at this program?
So what happened was, there was a lot that happened between D3 and D4 year. We started working on publication for my manuscript and getting that in. So we had submitted it to Journal of Endodontics, and then they didn't take it, but then we submitted it to the International Journal of Endodontics, and that was accepted, and it's now in publication. So that was one thing. I think another very big thing is I was able to attend in person the AAE 23 here in Chicago, and getting to meet a lot of program directors, and talking to them, because that also actually changed my list of 19 schools, because some of them, there were some schools I didn't know, but then when I talked to them, like one was down in Georgia, he says, I will not look at you. You just came out of school. You need more time for private practice. So, that came out talking to different ones. So, like, that really helped too. And then I did actually meet the program director and program chair at Kentucky, and I knew that they were a new program. So I got to ask them a lot of questions in person too about that. So that was really helpful, and really did inform my final list of schools applying. And then also, I added more student leadership and volunteering. So a lot of that had changed from D3 to the D4 year. So that cycle 1 to cycle 2, there was a lot of new things that I added and I can talk about. And definitely also what I learned at AAE was very important, because you got to talk about, what I saw, what I enjoyed. I did network with other endodontists and other people that were applying that I became friends with. So there's a lot that it's very important to go to that and kind of have speaking points to that. And then also, I found you, Dr. Darwin, and working on from just my interviewing and what I should do for like researching the programs and coming prepared. And, people were very impressed, especially at Kentucky, that when I opened my notebook, I had questions already prepared to ask the residents and them. They're like, oh, look at her. She's so prepared. I was like, yes, I am.
You surprised them. You dropped a bomb on them.
I did. So that, so there was a lot of things that changed from cycle 1 to cycle 2, that made me a better applicant and just a stronger applicant too. So.
And again, this is why, it is a process, everyone. It's not something that you're just going to be able to whip together whip your CV together, whip preparing questions, and just push button, and it's automatic. You're ready to go. It is a process. It's a process for a purpose, right? There's a reason behind that. Not only the purpose of becoming a board certified endodontist, but also it's a process for a reason, because there's a lot that goes into it, right? The programs want to make sure that you as a candidate and a future resident, that they can trust you with not only the rigors of the program, but also with their probably two most important commodities, which is the expertise, the didactic and curriculum and clinical excellence, but also the people that you will be serving, and maybe potentially serving in as representing that school or that institution, right? Their reputations are very, very important. So they need to make sure that they can trust you with that. So awesome. Any unusual questions or ones maybe that weren't prepared for, or maybe just kind of were different than what you were thinking?
I mean, I did not think I'd be talking about, dental education in the state that we're in, and, some of the new dental schools not taking the DAT, but, that kind of threw me. But I'm a very avid reader, not just on dentistry, but on other things. And I do check my emails that come from AGD and ADA about like little news updates. So especially when it comes to interview time, that's a good thing to kind of be reading on like what's happening, even like if there's DSOs, and especially with an endo, like, the big thing is with AI. And I was just on a Ask Me Anything talk that they had with the AAE that I was watching, and it was all about AI and regenerative endo. So having that, knowing what's kind of going on, you don't have to know every little detail about it, but it's really important. They want to make sure you kind of know what's happening and what's going on in dentistry. So that was really helpful. I did not know, but at least, and I tutor, so I do talk to a lot of pre-dents for the DAT. So that also actually helped me to inform me about what's happening in the other world of pre-dental education, because I'm a little bit out of it. I graduated, and I'm applying a residency, but you really don't know. So you just have to be really well rounded and kind of well read during your application cycles, because you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I was also asked, like, what movie did I saw? When I said Oppenheimer, like, oh, thank God you didn't see Barbie. I was like, well, if I saw Barbie, would that matter? I was like, would I have not gotten in or something?
Right.
You don't know.
No love for Barbie. Come on.
They're really not.
There are going to be some kids in your chair that you got to do root canals on that might like Barbie, or they may be more relaxed if you say something Barbie-ish. I don't know,
Yeah.
so that's funny. That's funny. After that interview day, or those interview days, did you like what was your like summation of how things went? Because we know that interview day can be different than maybe what you expected, but also the feeling, the energy of certain programs, because of the people that you're meeting and the vibes that you're getting, right? Did any of that happen where something that you thought was going to be was not there, or was it the opposite? What you expected, it was that and more, which made you really more attracted to the program?
Yeah, Kentucky really stood out. I mean, it wasn't just like it was like Southern hospitality to like the X degree. Like, one of the something happened with like the who was going to pick up, like, I guess they were trying to get a bus to pick us all up at the hotels that we were in downtown Lexington. One of the residents stepped up and said, "Oh, I'll take you guys." Like, took our phone numbers, like picked us up, and even like during the interviews and everything, it was just such a really like family atmosphere. And it was even between the interviewees, like we were all just kind of enjoying and like, oh, let's stay in touch. And we formed like a little group to see who got in and or like who can help you next cycle. So it was just really amazing just how being kind and helpful was, and like just that really family supportive atmosphere down there. And that's kind of what, I really I loved about it. And that's why when I interviewed, I was like, I'd really be heartbroken if I didn't get in.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, Tufts was a great experience too. They were very nice, very professional. I really enjoyed that. And I was a little bit hurt when I didn't get the phone call saying you're in, but I was like, everything happens for a reason. And if I didn't, I'd just reapply next cycle. But they also had a very nice program, and the program director, the residents, they were nice, but I didn't feel the same family feel and the tightness,
yeah.
that like I'm going to be lifelong friends with these residents, and the faculty are going to mentor me even when I'm out of the program. And that's really what
Yep,
I was personally looking for. So,
yep. That's key.
yeah,
That's key.
that's what I loved about it.
You want to know that this is a good fit for me. I will be able to thrive and excel in this environment. Yep,
Right.
this place is for me. So, with that being said, where will you be taking your newly and future endo talents to in July, no, actually June of 2024?
I will be in University of Kentucky in Lexington. So yes, that's where I'll be starting my endo residency. I'm so excited.
Yay! Congratulations. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. You're gonna leave a very important mark on Kentucky, not only because of the person that you are, but also because you guys will be the first class that starts, and you'll be the first class that finishes. Right?
Yep.
So that's great. That's great. I'm so happy for you. Um, I know you had a preference to maybe stay in the upper northeast.
Would have been nice.
Would have been nice, right? But planes fly and cars can be driven to get back to home base at any time, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that when you're picking programs, you have to pick programs where you can see yourself living for a few years, be it 2 to 3 years. That was another thing that I probably didn't mention earlier when I chose my list, that if I had to say yes, I would be okay living in that area of the country for 2 years. And also, it's a fun adventure, honestly. Dentistry's taking me, I never thought I'd even be in Chicago. I always wanted to stay on the East. So it's
Yeah,
fun. It's not permanent unless you want to make it that way. But
yeah.
yeah, so that was another thing. Yeah, so I'm excited to be down in
So,
Lexington.
so with this being a new program at Kentucky, just tell us a little bit about the how it's set up as far as tuition, stipend, like how much do you have to pay to do endo, or is it a stipend, or do they give folks scholarships? Like, how does that work for this being a new program?
So since it's a new program, it looks like it will be tuition I'll have to pay. It's not as high as some of the others. It's a little bit
Right.
more reasonably priced. You'll be seeing patients. They have so many patients that they wish they could bring us on earlier, is what they wish.
I bet.
They have a backlog of over 400 patients at the moment. We were in down there. Yeah. So,
Wow.
because there's only two dental schools in the whole state.
Yeah.
So there's that. So, you're going to see patient care 4.5 days a week, doing root canals and like also doing apicos and having the didactic work your first year. But they're also allowing for a little bit of moonlighting on the side, which is nice. So you can pay. Luckily enough, cost of living down there is a lot cheaper. So not too bad.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening and watching and not sure what moonlighting means, it means you can work as a licensed dentist after your residency day, or whether it be in the evening or on weekends, right?
Mhm.
Which is unique because some programs do not allow you to, because you may be on call, and that call duty is still part of your quote unquote resident duties and responsibilities. So there could be conflicts with being on call and not being able to respond to call because you're doing other things. Next assignment is go to the next video. Go to the next video right now. Go, go, go. Love, peace, and smiles. Go to the next video. Go to the next video.